What you're saying is that the money that America is currently spending on supporting Ukraine could be diverted to pay the cost of this policy.
I didn't, I suppose that is one possible source of funds. I mean, it seems like we've been writing checks for many billions of dollars to Ukraine, worrying about security in that part of the world without actually worrying about our own country first.
Well, we've just been looking at Donald Trump's approach to the conflict in Ukraine, but what will he do about America's own border? During the campaign, he pledged to expel an estimated 11 million undocumented migrants, and at one point gave the even higher figure of 21 million. Trump says he'll plough ahead with this plan, whatever the price, but that price could be pretty steep. One organisation, the American Immigration Council, has estimated that mass deportation on this scale could cost $315 billion, including the impact on the US labour market. So is he really serious? And in practical terms, I mean, how would he do it? Christopher Landau was the US ambassador to Mexico between 2019 and 2021, and he was appointed to that position by Donald Trump. He joins me now. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for being with us. I mean, those numbers I just read out there, $315 billion the cost. I mean, 21 million people potentially deported. Are those realistic numbers, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's funny that all of a sudden people on the left are so concerned about cost. I mean, having all these millions of illegal migrants in our country creates an incredible cost for our country. I mean, first of all, the United States government has been paying to fly in a lot of these people. There are direct flights from Haiti, Nicaragua. We've been spending billions of dollars already bringing them in, not to mention putting them up, feeding them. So, in the context of the United States government budget, this is a drop in the bucket.
So where are you going to find $315 billion for this policy then?
Well, one of the reasons may be Ukraine money. I mean, there is no shortage of money to actually deal with real national security threats like securing our border and making sure the people who are unvetted, who are not supposed to be here under our laws, are not here. That is critical money. So again, I think this is something that's going to be a priority for the president. He ran on this, and we never heard anything about the costs of the actual migration from these groups until now. It's like, oh no, we don't have the money for the wall, for the flights. All of a sudden now money is such a concern.
Well, I mean, he's about to be in government now, isn't he? Which is why the numbers are put to you. Just so whether we're clear now, what you're saying is that the money that America is currently spending on supporting Ukraine could be diverted to pay the cost of this policy.
I suppose that is one possible source of funds. I mean, it seems like we've been writing checks for many billions of dollars to Ukraine, worrying about security in that part of the world without actually worrying about our own country first. I think those are the kinds of decisions that President Trump, I suppose, I'm a private citizen, I'm not in the government, but I would expect he and his team would be taking a hard look at how these dollars are spent. And there's again, the U.S. government has budget of trillions of dollars. So again, we're not talking about some massive portion of the U.S. government, the Treasury revenues. And again, I think we have to realize there are untold billions of dollars being spent right now on housing the migrant. So
let's talk about some of the practical ways this policy might work. I mean, where will these people go? What happens if nations don't want to accept them back?
Well, under international law, there's a basic principle that you have to take your people back. If there are countries that say, oh, guess what? No, the United States is going to have to bring down the hammer on those countries and say, well, guess what? If you don't want to take your people back, none of your people will get a visa to come to the United States. We're going to, in every international forum, we're going to vote against any kind of, loan guarantees for your country. I mean, countries have been jerking around the United States on the international forum now for many years without any kind of serious adverse consequences. I think people have to realize things are about to get real.
And do you think that's the kind of action that Donald Trump would be willing to take? Because that's fairly extreme, what you've just said there.
Oh, are you kidding? Like, I think that's obvious. I mean, if a country is refusing to accept its obligations under international law, it seems to me odd that the United States wouldn't use all measures and levers within its
Mm.
control to try to redress that situation.
And what about the governors I mean, the governors of California and New York have seemingly said that they would oppose deportations. What would Donald Trump do in those cases?
Well, it's interesting. We have been hearing for years when the governor of Texas was trying to stop people at the border from invading his state, said, "Oh, no, 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 migration is a purely federal obligation. We can't have states getting in the way." All of a sudden now it's like, "No, no, no, feds, be quiet. The governors should be in the lead." No, no. In our country, we have a federal republic, which means that when federal law governs an issue, as it does on issues like migration, federal law is supreme under our Constitution. So those governors are going to have to yield where federal law overrides their decisions.
And in terms of the practicalities of this policy, I mean, we could get into how many extra staff it would take, what the cost of that would be, and whether or not you would involve the military in some way. But lots of people ask, are you talking about setting up detention camps to put people in? And are you talking about deporting children?
Again, I don't know the exact details of the plan. I mean, I think Tom Homan, who the president has now named to be his border czar, has been very clear on these issues and said that we're going to have a targeted approach that first deports criminals. I think again, it's not like you can wave a magic wand and deport 20 million people overnight. The fact that we've even allowed it to reach this situation, this crisis moment, tells you a lot about how far things have gone. But now to say like, oh, well, you should do nothing because the problem is so great, doesn't seem like a great answer. I mean, you got to figure out a targeted way to deal with this problem, and I think that just involves priorities.
Just finally, I mean, some people listening to this, I'm sure many people would agree that, people are crossing a border illegally. And it's an issue that we have in the UK that politicians here talk a lot about too, albeit on a different scale. That is something that needs to be tackled. But what is your message to the rest of the world? What's America saying to asylum seekers, to people who want to make a new life in America? What's your message to them? Don't bother trying. Is that right?
Our country is a nation of immigrants. My own parents are immigrants. I'm a first generation American, but we have laws. Follow our laws. There are already people in line. It's what this current situation by allowing people to cut in line. What does that say to the people who have been patiently waiting 12 years to try to get their documents in order? My message to people is, we are honored that you would love to come to our country and enjoy the fruits of prosperity and freedom that we enjoy here. And if you're interested, we appreciate your interest, but we have a legal method for doing that, and you should follow the legal method like everybody else.
Christoper Landau, the former US ambassador to Mexico between 2019 and 2021. Thank you for your time.